Hey Peyton, nice to see you again on this beautiful day. This time with two quotes. One by by Herman Hesse Siddhartha, which goes like that: knowledge can be communicated, but not wisdom. The other one related is from Marcel Proust, where he says, we don't receive wisdom. We must discover it for ourselves after a journey that no one can take for us or spare us. So please share your ideas with us today.
Great to be back, my friend. Yeah, and in the book Siddhartha, behind the knowledge can be received but not wisdom, he talks a lot about the limitations of language or the limitations of thought or of transference through thought and language. How language and knowledge is only kind of a representation of things as they are. It isn't actually capturing all of things that they are. Neither is it capable of truly transmitting anything beyond just the language. And this knowledge, these concepts, these thoughts don't actually necessarily resonate all throughout ourselves or naturally self-integrate through ourselves. And in the book Siddhartha, he early on in the story encounters this great teacher, Gautama, and he is sort of having this question on, should I follow this teacher, or should I follow my own path and live a life and engage with the world and do things? And what he says is that, yes, teacher, I recognize that you have this knowledge. I recognize that you have this wisdom. I recognize that you have this understanding, that it is doing this for you. And there's nothing that I can say that is a better teaching than the teaching that you offer. But at the same time, you did not learn this knowledge. You did not acquire this wisdom from a teaching. You did not read this in a book. You discovered this from your own experience, from actually going out and doing things, from looking within, from encountering the world and your own condition for yourself, first person. And that is also the path that I will set on to find my own wisdom. I cannot hear it from you. I cannot learn it from a book. I must, in fact, engage with the world to discover my own path and to learn to listen to the voice within and the universe without. And so this is kind of a bit of an inspiration on how perhaps the best knowledge, in my opinion, is not something that we get from books. Maybe books articulate it better than we are able to articulate on our own without having read anything. And maybe it helps us kind of plug it into our conceptual map and relate it to other concepts and discuss it, and certainly be able to espouse it aloud or to explain why we do what we do to ourselves and others. But the wisdom and certain forms of growth in embodied knowledge perhaps can only be encountered, only be really accumulated, felt, and integrated from actual life experiences, from the journey that we walk that is not just in between two covers. What do you think about the things that we can learn from the act of just learning words versus the things that we can learn from actually encountering with real stuff?
Yeah, man, that's a pretty good idea of that. The representations, the words, and the knowledge is limited in the ability to transfer the ability to have insight and judgment. For the insight, you have to really engage for yourself. You have to experience it for yourself. And in that way, it's true that there are big limitations versus reading books versus experiencing your real life. And there's also this kind of gradient where you can form narratives and stories with your words that convey the meaning and the insights of the life experience of others. Like, I really love biographies and so on. And if you really identify with the persons of the narratives, then narratives are a good tool to really transfer some kind of insightful knowledge as well. So at least for a bit, and at least like as another reference experience. But it is true, you have to build up the reference experiences for yourself to really know something, to really get the gut feeling and the good sense of what is to decide for right or wrong. And not only to have the facts and philosophies and the knowledge and the memorizations available, but you also have the insights of, oh, how are the inner machinations of this actually behaving? How does this actually behave? How is the system really to be characterized? Is it like linear, or is it like non-linear? Is it all the time the same output if I proportionally increase the input, or how does it behave? These insights come from having a wide variety of experiences regarding that thing. And with this experience, with experiencing your own life, with regard to the reference stories, narratives, and experiences, you can build up a good judgment. What do you think about the relationship between knowledge, wisdom, insight, and judgment?
Yeah, you make a great point, which is that it's not that just because just because facts cannot truly give us wisdom, doesn't mean that there's no value in them. That facts and knowledge in words and what we receive in books or what we receive by conversation with somebody who has been to other territories than we have in fact and can share the map of their own experience with us. These things can be, in my experience, kind of like a treasure map. If somebody says that, oh, if you investigate this aspect of your own experience, if you pay attention to the cause and effect relationship of your thoughts and your emotions, if you pay attention to what the experience is like to say look for the center of your own experience and see the contraction of the self fall away. These can be, for just as some examples, very useful pointers and useful maps, in fact, to show us where to look. And I think a temptation that I often have with these things, or especially kind of something that is a natural tendency that I have paid attention to more and more over time, is a lot of times I'm content to take the map in hand and not go out for myself to explore the territory. Or a lot of times it's easier for us to take the map in hand and not need to venture outside into the discomfort of the real world, of actual pain and adversity, and instead be content with, okay, I have this set of knowledge, I have this set of facts, I can speak them eloquently, I can say them clearly, I can understand what XYZ person has said about them, and I can name drop them and mention the ways that they disagree. And a lot of times this knowledge theater, or this pontificating that we have within our mind, can feel like it is actual embodied wisdom. It can feel as if we have scratched the itch that we need to scratch, or we have in hand what we need. But in fact, these things are just pointing toward opportunities or potential experiences that we can have in our real life. And it's, in my opinion, almost a conversion of this potential knowledge into actual embodied wisdom, something that can reach its way into our intuition and inform our sense of the way of approaching situations, our sense of the environment that we're within and how we can respond to it in a way that's actually inclusive of the territory itself, as opposed to just a two-dimensional map that is our knowledge and narratives, which can only put one word in front of the other, in front of the other, in front of the other in a linear sequence, and thereby ignore the vast majority of the context of any situation. And it's when we have this experience, when we have this embodied knowledge or this wisdom that can only come from our grappling with the real world, not from just being told about it or hearing words about it. That's what we can cash in for truly being able to operate and embody out in an insanely multifaceted and complex environment where there's so many variables that we could never put together a logical sequential algorithm in our mind to make decisions. And so to practically operate, to practically integrate, to practically utilize these tools, we must first convert the map into an experience of the territory before we can really take that experience and use that wisdom to then inform how we navigate out in the real world, as opposed to how we interact and discuss the maps. What do you think about this map territory as it relates to our own personal journey of discovery, and kind of how to know when to look for the answer in this place versus to try to go discover it on our own or have it be shown to us from our interactions with the world?
Well, you make a really good point with that the map is not the representation of the reality. And the finger that points to the moon is not the moon, it's just a finger that points to the moon. In the same way that if you know something that you should do but don't do it, it has the same effect as if you wouldn't even know it. So knowledge is only to be made effective if you apply it, if you really enact that thing that you know, if you apply yourself to the real world, if you interact with it. And every action step, every step you take produces new information, especially in a complex environment. If you cannot describe the system completely, you have to take a next best step to really gain new insights from what you see from the new position you are taking in. And from that, you can derive more knowledge and insight, and probably can position yourself in a next best possible way. And the same way that if you know everything, you have a good memory, probably, but it doesn't make you really intelligent or effective. If intelligence is then the effectivity with which one agent pursues a specific goal, then it doesn't make it wise if you act intelligently towards a goal which does more harm than good to you. So real wisdom is to have the insight into the maybe consequences of your actions, and the consequences of the consequences of your actions, and so forth, and the higher order consequences even. And therefore you have the insight into, oh, when I do this, probably very many much steps down the line, it produces a certain kind of result with a higher likelihood. And then you can wisely decide, oh, I really shouldn't step over the edge of the waterfall, because if I step one step too much, then I cannot come back. And really mitigating risks is about understanding second order and higher order consequences, and then enacting on that knowledge that the system which you engage in and the action you take produces certain outcomes with a likelihood range. And then it's wise to really not do the things that do harm, but do the things that are probably doing more good than harm, and more effectively even leave out the things that do harm. And what do you think about judgment as wisdom and the knowledge of the higher order consequences, and really not only pursuing a goal intelligently, very effectively, but deciding what is to pursue, what is wise to pursue?
Yeah, great questions. And these questions really do point at the immense complexity of the problem itself. How do you answer a question like, what should I pursue? Out of everything possible to pursue, out of every single way that these will affect us positively and negatively, out of every single cost and risk and opportunity and service area for luck or service area for bad luck that is inherent within each of these. How do we align with what our own skill set are? How do we know what our own skill set is? And these are questions that are so complex that they do come back to the limitations of language themselves. If we try to math together words to come up with the answers to these most important, most impactful, most difficult and complex questions, we're not going to get a good answer, because the sentences that we put together will not incorporate the 300 different variables that are in the equation. And it's only in our intuition and are taking in the big picture, the territory itself, that we could ever hope to have an answer that navigates us in the right direction, even though by very nature of it being something that is guided by intuition, we won't be able to actually step back and show all of our work and math out in the back end why this is necessarily the right answer. We might have some supporting evidence, we might be able to sense check it, we might be able to run some scenario analysis and projections with the left brain, but ultimately, if this is going to be guided by more than just the 5 variables that we can explicitly think about, it must come from embodied wisdom. It must come from our experience and our intuition. The growth of the intuition is something that, in my opinion, is it comes at oftentimes a very high cost. And it's something that is not necessarily that well, at least in my experience, well spoken about, well understood, or common knowledge enough, in the sense that a lot of times the only way to take it from being brain knowledge to being, for it being basically language based knowledge to being embodied understanding, that alchemy must pass through this box of experience, this box of encountering and grappling with the challenges of the real world. For example, when I was in college, started an e-commerce business, and I thought that I could just post something online, write something about it, put a price on it, blast an ad, and it would sell. And I've met the real world, which is actually there's a ton of people that are trying to do that. And so, in order to make the unit economics work, you have to find the perfect combination of product market fit for a given product. And it was only once I had taken my idea and thoughts and, oh, this is a concept that I could do, and passed it through the real world market feedback did I realize, oh, that doesn't work. You have to have a very fine-tuned product to succeed in e-commerce. Otherwise, just half-ass 80-20 marketing efforts are going to fall flat almost 100% of the time. And so that gave me a better clarity of judgment when I was evaluating new opportunities. Oh, I better make sure that I can actually sell this product before I spend too much time figuring out how I'm going to ship 100,000 units of it, for example. And this real world alchemy from knowledge to experience, from knowledge to wisdom, a lot of times does have a really high cost. If you actually are going to go and do things in the real world and learn your lessons the hard way, which is the way that you get to actually keep the lessons, it's going to cost you. It's going to cost you time, it's going to cost you money, and it's going to cost you pain, it's going to cost you embarrassment, and it's going to be very many ways of challenge, very many ways of struggle. And some of those ways are that when you're in a deep struggle, you will not be your best self. When you're in a deep struggle, you will not make every decision perfectly. You will have to endure the humiliation of witnessing your own errors and their effects on your path if you want to make your mistakes and learn this embodied knowledge the hard way. And this cost that you pay at the time may feel like it's regrettable at each passing stage where you witness yourself not be perfect in the real world. But in fact, this is our own path of imperfection, mistakes, toe stubs, and errors, and bumping our head on shit is a necessary part of the tuition that we must pay if we want to evaluate and get this real world feedback and real world growth of knowledge and judgment and strength and experience in these various domains, and understanding how we should understand and how we should grapple with such a multifaceted and complex equation as we deal with when we try to take our stuff and turn the map into a navigation of the actual territory. Any closing thoughts from you, my man, in terms of this embodied knowledge and our journey to it, and the pains and misfortunes and embarrassments that inevitably come along the way?
Well, if you don't apply yourself, you won't gain much out of it, and you won't have much pain either. But the value you gain from pain is when you reflect upon it. When you reflect upon why did it happen and ask it multiple times, probably, you will find some insight. You will gain some progress, and you can principle. You can derive a principle from what you experienced, but it has to be applied into the time you are in right now, at the place you are at right now, and the pain you specifically feel right now, to really be able to sensibly circumnavigate any future pain through similar experiences. So actually, if you use your pain well and reflect upon it every time you feel it, and most often our pain is more psychologically than physically. And if we have the fortune of it only being psychological pain, then we can pretty much learn how to mitigate it and have a principled way to struggle well. And struggling well means you perceive yourself not in a place of victimhood, but in a place of agency. Like you really can, you have the ability to figure things out. You have the ability to gain some insight and knowledge from it. And you have the ability to make progress and become a better version of you and a better version than you have been yesterday. And with that, may we struggle well. May we use pain we encounter every day to reflect upon it and to derive some value and some principles and some wisdom from our own experiences. And also maybe from the experiences of others, so that we don't have to make the same mistakes that have been done multiple times before by other people. So maybe let's read a little bit as well, take in some narratives as well, some biographies, and learn from others' failures and mistakes as well.
Agreed. Yes. Regardless of whether we look to others' lives or within, we will find no shortage of potential failures and toe stubs to learn from.
Yeah.
So may we take advantage of all of them, and may we embrace the even challenging aspects of our journey. This journey of growth, this non-linear, non-smooth, non-easy, non-comfortable adventure that we find ourselves on as we try to go, not excluding the library, but not just maintaining ourselves within the narrow, safe confines of an air-conditioned library with a Kindle in our hands. May we
Indeed.
grapple with the world and embrace the often uncomfortable lessons that it brings to us. I appreciate you sharing your thoughts, my friend. I will talk to you on the next one.
No pain, no gain, bro. Appreciate you. See you soon.
Agreed. Take care. Bye.
Bye.